1,500 miles east of Argentina, there was a sparsely populated island called Andor. For 400 years, explorers and now tourists have been regaled by native stories of a powerful nation that ruled the initially Australia-sized island and the seas around it almost 3,000 years before. Until the late 1960s, these were only fanciful stories of imaginative natives, but in 1969, satellites detected a small landmass located in the South Atlantic Ocean. This fueled a research effort to discover the history of the island and determine if it was once a home to humans. Currently, the size of the island is comparable to Madagascar, and a possible explanation for this decrease in landmass is erosion. Joining us in this program are several renowned anthropologists of varying specialties and fields. Dr. Harding is a professor at Brown University and is an archaeologist. Professor Jacobson currently teaches and directs research at Cambridge regarding the cultural aspects of various ancient civilizations. Dr. Halverson is an archaeologist from St. Andrews University who specializes in the biological aspects of civilizations. She runs a lab that dates fossils and artifacts found at excavation sites. Professor Andros is a linguistic anthropologist from the University of South Africa and conducts research on decoding ancient texts. Professor Browning is a cultural anthropologist at Oxford. She teaches classes regarding ancient texts and social constructs of civilizations.
I'm the head of archaeology for the excavation and exploration of Andor. This island has been hidden in the middle of the South Atlantic, but thanks to remote sensing, we were able to locate the island in 1969. When scientists uncovered this large island that had apparently been ignored over the years, they were just unbelievably excited.
Based on artifacts found, what can be determined about Andor?
Like all civilizations of this size and population, the Cavaglians practice agriculture using a clever array of tools and animal-powered machines. This large-scale farming allowed many Cavaglians to specialize in trades not having to do with food. In addition to Cavaglian farming methods, archaeologists have discovered ancient scrolls detailing many business deals, marriage contracts, and even military alliances that were negotiated over dinner. This shows that dining was not just to obtain nutrients for the Cavaglians, but was considered a time of fellowship. These ancient versions of dinner parties were a centerpiece of group cohesion in Cavaglian society. They were used to form alliances. Cavaglians were also famous for inviting kings from the nations they were warring against to feast, to show respect for courageous or otherwise noteworthy action. Excavations have also shown that the Cavaglians had a fleet of ships capable of sailing to 3 of the 7 continents, and in fact may have sailed farther than that. Having a powerful military and trading fleet allowed the entire empire to obtain goods and food from foreign lands.
Because Andor is now at the most an eighth of its original size, many of the digs are taking place underwater. Despite the difficulty, we've been able to find many artifacts that help us identify who the Cavaglians really were. Another fantastic find was the hidden library in the Royal Palace. It was filled with ancient scrolls that have exponentially expanded our knowledge of the Cavaglians.
What has been determined regarding the religion of the Cavaglians?
Cavaglian religion is characterized by its hierarchical polytheism. Much of the information regarding the Cavaglian religious beliefs and stories was determined through the use of scrolls and paintings found in ruins and temples. Like ancient Greek and Egyptian gods, this pantheon was directly responsible for events that transpired on Earth. Because the original Cavaglian lifestyle pulled almost all its natural resources from the sea, the king of the gods, or Eldikar, was master of the seas and responsible for bringing life to Earth. These pre-imperial Cavaglians worshipped only Eldikar, but did recognize many gods who were responsible for other parts of nature and human life. In Cavaglia, the line of kings were all considered descendants of Thamar. Since Thamar, the firstborn of the gods and divinely appointed king of Cavaglia, each king was claimed ruled by divine right. This gave the king enormous power over the people, because by defying the king, you were also defying Eldikar. It was the king's duty to ask the gods, on behalf of his nation, for food on the table, drink in their cups, and courage in battle. The people saw a direct correlation between the state of the nation and the king's relationship with the gods.
But what about the people living in Cavaglia? What were they like? Would any of their remains be found?
I am an osteologist, and I study the bones of ancient hominids in order to determine characteristics like physical anatomy, disease, diet, activity pattern, etc. We have found several specimens at this site that we will be examining in order to determine the cause of death and other various characteristics about their lifestyle. This skull that was found is fairly small and is likely the skull of a child. The skull was named Jesse by some of the archaeologists. The eyes demonstrate that this specific hominid and other hominids on the island were bipedal. We used carbon-14 dating to determine the age of this fossil. The hominid it belonged to likely lived around the time 2000 BC. By examining Jesse's teeth, we know that he had an omnivorous diet. Jesse had less than half of his permanent teeth and still had a few of his milk teeth, suggesting the hominid was under the age of 10 at the time of death. There were several cracks and fracture marks on the skull. So far, my team determined that there was a large force required to make those marks, and it's possible that the individual was learning to hunt with his father and other members of the village. This may have caused him to die if he got too close to the prey and was hit. This is, however, just a hypothesis. Another fossil at the site, Delilah, shows signs of severe bone demineralization. An unknown virus may have wiped out the Cavaglian society by slowly weakening the people, making them more susceptible to other diseases and viruses. Because the population appeared to be fairly isolated and self-sufficient, the Cavaglians could have died out with very few other populations knowing about it. The civilization was also likely bilateral. There have been several written records found at a few sites that document family lineages. From these records, we've determined that monogamy was the preferred form of marriage practiced in Cavaglia.
Has any information been found regarding the clothing styles of Cavaglians?
The island of Andorra's climate played a large role in the clothing choices of the Cavaglian society. The majority of their clothing was likely made of linen, which was worn in varied ways based on social stratification. Wall art has depicted these variations in clothing. People on the lower end of the strata wore their linen tunic with no jewelry and little to no beading. On the highest end of the strata, linen was worn long in a pleated fashion with long gold jewelry. The amount of jewelry worn was representation of wealth. In the winter, the Cavaglians would switch over to wool to keep themselves warm. The Cavaglians all wore sandals of some sort, except for during the winter, where fur was worn to keep their feet warm.
Alright, the language of the Cavaglians was similar to an ancient Western Egyptian language. Written records of Lord date back to 2200 BC, making it one of the world's oldest extinct languages. Alaric was spoken in different dialects, but still understood in a general sense. This information is known due to the scrolls found in various regions that document different dialects. The inhabitants of the western part of the island most likely spoke the language in a slower tone, with a high-pitched accent, elongated words, and low vocabulary. Compared to the inhabitants of the eastern part of Andorra, the language is spoken in a more subtle, normal tone with a high vocabulary incorporated in their daily social encounters. The Cavaglians were mainly inhabitants of the eastern part of Andorra, but a few migrated towards the western and northern part of the island. For the most part, the symbols created by the Cavaglians were based on their beliefs and religion. Many symbols have been uncovered, and the meaning has been related towards the praise of their gods. Symbols and hieroglyphics were written with a special pigment from certain plants used as ink after being processed, and the instrument to write with was the unused stems of the plants, which were pointed with knives and other cutting objects towards the bottom. The Cavaglians used the form of hieroglyphics as their writing system to express themselves socially to other individuals, as entertainment, and as a form of artwork. The display of hieroglyphics are shown during ritual practices.
The Cavaglians were quite the pioneers of literature. Their early stories were mainly the focus of the nation's existence as far as their supreme god Eldikar. They told the story of how Eldikar, the master of the sea, brought life to the island as well as conquering the surrounding nations. Along with the many stories of Eldikar, the Cavaglians wrote many love stories. Their most famous was about Thamar, the firstborn of the kings, falling deeply in love with a human girl named Yvonne. Thamar's mother, Artemis, saw the love he had and felt sympathy and wanted him to be happy, so she convinced Eldikar to allow them to be married and become the future king and queen of the Cavaglian nation. Although records have been found concerning other pieces of literature, many are incomplete or difficult to interpret due to the many centuries of erosion and lack of preservation of their hieroglyphic language. The Cavaglians possessed intricate pottery, statues, and monuments. Their pottery depicted different sea creatures and battle scenes between the gods. Archaeologists discovered that most of their art depicted images of Eldikar. One of the most famous and fascinating aspects of the Cavaglian society was the architecture. The temples were engraved with hieroglyphic stories, the most interesting features being the seashells that were incorporated to show how much people worshipped and respected Eldikar as their supreme god.